Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're coming to you live on this February 19th, 2026. Tonight, we're taking a deep dive into a story that has sent shockwaves through France and is being watched closely around the world. A story of political violence, deep societal fractures, and a nation grappling with its identity. The brutal death of a 23-year-old student in Lyon has become a flashpoint, exposing the raw and dangerous edges of France's political landscape. Over the next 12 minutes, we will unpack the events, the arrests, the political fallout, and what this means for France as it looks toward its next presidential election in 2027. We'll examine the data, the history, and the competing narratives that have turned this tragedy into a national crisis. Our story begins in the historic city of Lyon on the evening of Thursday, February 12th, 2026. A small demonstration was taking place, organized by far-right student groups. The exact number of participants is contested, but police estimates place the crowd at between 80 and 120 individuals. This demonstration was a counter-protest. Its target was a separate, larger student meeting happening nearby, a meeting where the keynote speaker was Rima Hassan, a Palestinian-French lawyer and a newly elected legislator for the radical left France Unbowed Party, known by its French initials, LFI. Her presence, and her views on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, had drawn the ire of nationalist groups. As the far-right demonstration dispersed, violence erupted. According to witness statements and early police reports, a group of masked individuals, estimated to be between 15 and 20 strong, confronted the dispersing demonstrators. In the ensuing chaos, 23-year-old Quentin Darank, a mathematics student described by acquaintances as a fervent nationalist, was isolated. He was beaten and kicked repeatedly about the head by multiple assailants. The attack lasted mere minutes but had catastrophic consequences. Darank was rushed to a nearby hospital with severe head trauma. He never regained consciousness. 2 days later, on Saturday, February 14th, 2026, he was pronounced dead. A post-mortem examination conducted by the Lyon prosecutor's office revealed the grim details: a fractured skull and fatal brain injuries. The case was immediately upgraded from assault to homicide. The investigation moved with remarkable speed, a testament to the political sensitivity of the case. By Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, French police had made a series of arrests. Initial reports indicated 9 arrests, but by the end of the day, the number had climbed to 11. Those detained are described as suspected militants from the far left, specifically from anarchist and anti-fascist circles. But one arrest sent a political tremor through the entire French establishment. Among those taken into custody was a parliamentary assistant working for a deputy, a member of parliament, from the very same France Unbowed, or LFI, party. This connection, however tenuous it may prove to be, has provided immediate ammunition to political opponents who have long accused LFI and its firebrand leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, of fostering a climate of hatred and violence against their opponents on the right. The Lyon prosecutor, Thierry Dran, has been careful in his public statements, emphasizing that the investigation is ongoing and that charges have not yet been formally filed. He stated the investigation is for homicide and other potential criminal charges, including participation in a group with the intent to commit violence. The suspects range in age from their late teens to their mid-20s. As of this evening, all 11 remain in custody for questioning, a process that under French law can last up to 96 hours before they must be either charged or released. To understand why this single death has ignited such a fierce political firestorm, we must look at the broader context of French politics. France has a long and bloody history of political violence, from the Revolutionary Terror to the ideological battles of the 20th century. In recent decades, the primary fault line has been between the mainstream Republican center and the rising tide of the nationalist right, embodied by Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party. However, a new, more volatile fault line has emerged: the clash between the radical left and the radical right. On one side, groups like the Black Blocs and various anti-fascist, or Antifa, collectives see themselves as the last line of defense against what they perceive as a rising fascist threat. They often operate on a philosophy of no platform for far-right ideologues, which can manifest as disrupting rallies and, in extreme cases, physical confrontation. On the other side, far-right groups, including student factions like the one Darank was associated with, frame themselves as patriots defending French identity against globalization, mass immigration, and what they call Islamo-leftism, a term often used to disparage the academic and activist left. This is not a new conflict. Data from the French Interior Ministry shows a steady rise in political violence over the past 5 years. In 2025, there were over 320 reported incidents of political violence nationwide, a 15% increase from 2024. These incidents range from vandalism and brawls to more serious assaults. The city of Lyon itself has been a particular hotspot, accounting for nearly 12% of all such incidents last year. The death of Quentin Darenc represents the most severe escalation of this low-intensity conflict to date. The political reaction has been immediate, polarized, and predictable. From the right, the condemnation has been universal and fierce. Marine Le Pen, the leader of the National Rally and a likely presidential candidate in 2027, declared the killing a political assassination and blamed the culture of hatred propagated by the radical left. Eric Zemmour, another figure on the nationalist right, called it the logical conclusion of left-wing terrorism. Even figures from the center-right, like former President Nicolas Sarkozy, have issued statements calling for national unity and a crackdown on political extremism of all kinds. The response from the left has been more fractured. The mainstream Socialist Party and President Emmanuel Macron's centrist Renaissance Party have condemned the violence unequivocally, offering condolences to Darenc's family while calling for calm and a thorough judicial process. The reaction from France Unbowed, or LFI, has been the most scrutinized. Party leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon condemned the murder but was quick to add context, stating that violence breeds violence and pointing to what he called the daily violence of far-right rhetoric and policies. He has distanced the party from the arrested parliamentary assistant, stating the individual was acting in a personal capacity. However, this has done little to quell the criticism. Opponents are replaying years of inflammatory rhetoric from Mélenchon, who has previously called for the destruction of his political enemies and described the police as trash. They argue that while LFI may not have directly ordered the attack, its discourse creates the environment where such violence is seen as legitimate by its most radical followers. Let's examine the data behind this polarization. France is a nation deeply divided. Polling conducted in the wake of this incident reveals a stark split in public perception. When asked, who is primarily responsible for the climate of political violence in France? 42% of respondents blamed the radical left, 38% blamed the radical right, and 20% were unsure. This near-even split underscores the national divide. Furthermore, trust in political institutions to handle this crisis is low. Only 35% of French citizens express confidence in the government's ability to curb political violence. This crisis comes at a critical juncture. France is just over a year away from its next presidential election, scheduled for April 2027. The current political landscape is fragmented. President Emmanuel Macron, now in his second term, is constitutionally barred from running again. The field is wide open. Pre-crisis polling showed a tight race forming between Marine Le Pen's National Rally, various candidates from the fractured center-right, and a potential candidate from the left, possibly Mélenchon himself. This incident has the potential to dramatically reshape that race. For Le Pen, it is a potent tool to rally her base and attract centrist voters fearful of left-wing disorder. For the center, it is a challenge to appear strong on security without alienating the center-left. For LFI, it is an existential threat, potentially marginalizing them as a party of violence in the eyes of the broader electorate. The human cost, of course, extends far beyond the political calculus. Quentin Darenc was a 23-year-old student of mathematics. By all accounts, he was intelligent, passionate about his beliefs, and active in nationalist student circles. His family has described him as a loving son and brother, whose life was cut short by senseless brutality. They have pleaded for his death not to be politicized, a plea that has largely gone unheeded. On the other side are the 11 individuals in custody, their lives now irrevocably changed. Their families and lawyers maintain their innocence, arguing they are being scapegoated in a politically charged atmosphere. The city of Lyon, a vibrant cultural and intellectual hub, is now a city on edge. Student unions across the political spectrum have called for marches and counter-marches in the coming days. University administrators are bracing for potential clashes on campuses. The local police force, already stretched thin, has requested an additional 150 personnel from national units to help maintain order and facilitate the investigation. The economic impact is also being felt. Several planned cultural events and forums in Lyon have been cancelled due to security concerns, resulting in an estimated loss of over €500,000 in local revenue for the week. Looking forward, the path is fraught with danger. The immediate legal process will be crucial. The prosecutor must build a watertight case based on forensic evidence, video footage from the area which is reportedly extensive, and witness testimony. Any perception of a politically motivated whitewash or witch hunt will further erode public trust. The government, led by Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, faces the delicate task of responding with firmness without inflaming tensions further. There are calls for a ban on certain far-left and far-right groups, but such moves are legally complex and risk driving extremism further underground. In the longer term, France must confront the deeper societal issues that fuel this polarization: economic inequality, perceived cultural displacement, and a loss of faith in the traditional political class to solve these problems. The French model of secular republicanism, or laïcité, is being tested as never before. As we have seen in other democracies, when the center cannot hold, the extremes fill the vacuum, and violence becomes the currency of political discourse. In conclusion, the death of Quentin Darenc is more than a tragic crime. It is a symptom of a profound sickness in the French body politic. It is a story of 11 arrests, but also of millions of citizens watching with anxiety. It is a story set in Lyon, but with echoes in capitals across Europe and beyond, where similar battles between identity politics and globalization are playing out. The coming weeks will be critical. Will France use this moment to pull back from the brink, to seek dialogue and de-escalation? Or will it descend further into a cycle of blame, retaliation, and violence that poisons the well of democracy itself? The answer will not only determine the fate of those currently in custody, but will also set the tone for the pivotal presidential election of 2027 and the future of one of Europe's most important nations. For Kenya News Update today, this has been a 12-minute deep dive. We will continue to follow this story closely. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today for more in-depth reporting from around the world.